everybody, welcome back to Mixing Music Analog and mixingmusicanalog.com, and here on my YouTube channel. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I use plug-in effects, reverbs and delays in room emulation, and how I route that out to the SSL to blend that back in and use it as plugins as opposed to using hardware effects. So before we get to that, if you like what you see in this video, please hit that subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell so you know when I post new content. So let's head on over here over into Studio One, and let's talk a second about how this is set up. So as of the recording of this video, I don't have any hardware reverb and delay units to use in this hybrid setup. I'm using plugins. Maybe by the time you watch this video, that will be rectified and there'll be some other hardware units in here for reverb because I want to compare it to the plugins. But as I sit here today, that's not the case. So how do you use reverbs and effects with your board? Well, it's similar to the way you do it with the audio channel. So just like we've talked about in prior videos, everything that you have set up in the DAW, whether it's audio, MIDI instruments, or effects, have to eventually end up somewhere here on the SSL so you can mix it all together and print it back in as a stereo mix, okay? So the way I have my effects set up is this, where I'm using reverbs as of today. So we have 32 faders here on the board, 32 long faders. Okay, these 32 long faders, and we also have 32 preamps on this board, right? Channel 1 through 32. We also have 32 short faders here on the board as well. So we have a total of 64. Now, the way this console is set up is that you can choose on each channel which one of the faders you want routed through the preamp, okay? So all the audio tracks are coming in on the long faders, and those are assigned via a switch on the channel strip to the long fader. So what that means is as the audio is coming through the board in the channel, the line ins, D-sub connectors, line inputs, those are going through the actual SSL preamps, and you can turn it up and drive it and use the drive circuit and all of that, and that's being applied to the audio on the long faders. Now, you can also have, or instead of, you could, with the touch of a button on each channel strip, you can route the short fader to the actual preamp. We don't have it set up that way, but you could do either or, okay? We have just the long faders. The short faders, the way this is set up, is anything that's coming into the monitor in D-sub on the console is going and being assigned to the short faders. That's not going through the preamp. That's just go directly in from the D-sub to the short fader, and it's bypassing the preamp. Does that make sense? If you want to learn more about the actual signal flow and the way I have this set up, go out to the archive on the YouTube channel and look for the video called Signal Flow, and we get a lot more in depth and show you each individual D-sub, how it's plugged in and all that stuff. But for this video, I just want to let you know that. So the way one of my Apollo 16s, the third one that I added to my rig, those 16 outputs are coming into the first two buckets, the first 16 channels on the monitor in D-sub. And that is being assigned directly to the small fader. It's not hitting the preamp. And I'm using those 16 inputs for all of my effects returns. So we have 16 mono, or in our case, we're using effects, and they're stereo. So we're using 8 sets, or 8 pairs, 8 times 2 is 16, for our effects returns, okay? So let me show you in Studio One how that looks as far as the I/O matrix goes. So if we come up to Studio One here and I go to Preferences and go to Song Setup in my Output tab, you'll see all the outputs that are set up, and you'll see here the last 8 pairs, stereos, channels, effects 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 pairs, 6 stereo pairs are being routed, the outputs of my third Apollo 16 to the short fader. The last 2 pairs, 7 and 8, I'm assigning for parallel compression, which we'll talk about in another video. But for the first 6, those are stereo effects blends or effects returns, okay? So cancel that out. So in Studio One, if you look down here, you'll see that I have an effects return for acoustic guitar, drum room, a snare verb, a keyboards verb, a vocals verb, and a background vocal verb. So you set this up like you would when you're mixing all in the box. We have an effects channel. Let's start with the acoustic guitar. On that effects channel, I'm using the CLA Epic, and I'm using an acoustic guitar preset that's been tweaked. The preset's not important. And that is being routed out of the Apollo effects 1, right? You saw the IO matrix, and that is coming into the first 2 faders, short faders on the board, which are down here. Okay, you can see that hopefully here on this camera view. This is the effects blend for the acoustic guitar. Okay, so if I solo up the acoustic guitar, and that's an exaggeration, but now you could hear the plugin. Okay, so that is the blend. So we did the same thing, or I did the same thing for the drums, for vocals, background vocals, keyboards, and everything else. So if we look back here in Studio One, you'll see that we also have a blend here for drum room. And on our drum room, let me mute the acoustic guitar. I'll unmute the drum room. We're using the IK Multimedia Sunset Sound. Okay, so all of our drums are being routed to the IK Multimedia Sunset Sounds. And by the way, all these want to be 100% wet. You want to make sure the sends are 100% wet, all post fader. And you'll see all of our drum tracks down here are routed to that post fader. We followed the panning and it said 100% wet, and that is coming in or going out of effects 2. Okay, and coming back in on the second set of faders. So effects 2, sorry about that. Effects 2 is actually faders 3 and 4. Okay, so if I solo up the drums, you hear the IK Multimedia Sunset Sound. Okay, makes sense? And so I did the same thing here for snare. For snare, I'm using the Universal Audio EMT 140 plate reverb to add a little bit of reverb to the snare itself. On the keyboards, I'm using the Universal Audio EMT 250, which is wonderful. Okay. And then on our vocals, I'm using the CLA Epic as well as the background vocals. Okay, and as you can see here in Studio One, again, they're all routed out effects 1, effects 2, effects 3, effects, probably should do this in order, but effects 6 is the keyboards, effects 4 is vocals, lead vocals, effects 5 is background vocals. And so when you blend them all in here on the board in the pairs of faders, here's kind of what you get. So let me mute these, all of these. I'll play back the mix, and then I'll just unmute and mute all the effects. You can hear the accumulative effect of the blends of all these effects. Here we go. Isn't it so wonderful? Sometimes late at night I feel it sneaking in. I can't chase it out with TV or the news. I get tired of walking the line. I'm reaching out for someone. I'm reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm reaching out for someone. I'm reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hey! Okay, so that's how you can do the blends. You can just blend them all in to taste, and then it all gets routed. These short faders are being routed to the mix bus, so it's all going out the SSL bus compressor, it's all going out the Fusion, and it's all going to be part of the print track when you print the whole mix back in. So that's how I'm getting around not using hardware, just using plugins. And then this way you can use as many plugins as you want. You could do it however you want to do it, as long as you have to have the right amount of I/O, right? So you need to have enough outputs on your audio interface to dedicate to the effects returns. So if you wanted to use more than 8 stereo sets, if I wanted to use another 8, I in essence would need to have a fourth X16 with another 16 mono outs or 8 stereo pairs, and that would allow me to also have another set of 16 down here on this end of the board. So in essence, you don't have to use these for just effects. You can use the short faders for audio tracks as well. You just keep in mind that you're not going to be, if you already got the preamp assigned to the long fader, you can't assign it to the short fader as well. But if you don't need that and you just want to monitor it, you can in essence have 64 channels or faders at mixdown with a combination of audio, effects returns, parallel compression, and whatever else you could dream up. So that's what's really nice about the Origin. It's, you don't run out of faders, that's for sure. So this is a nice way to do it. Now, the one thing I will say, because this is the first time I've ever routed out plugins to the board like this and blended them in. A couple of things I noticed that's a little different than when you're doing it solely in the box is that you don't have to hit these short faders very much. I mean, you just have to touch them up a little bit and you get plenty of effect. Now, I'm someone who doesn't like to hear the reverb and the delay. I want to feel it and give the mix a little bit more size and a little bit more depth and not really hear it. I've always been kind of the thought process is that if I could hear the reverb and it's real obvious, it's too much. And if I can't hear it, obviously it's not enough. And if I have to focus and reach for it and I can just hear it, to me, that's about the right amount. And I noticed that with doing it on the board here, just a little bit seems to be enough. Now, again, I'm still playing with this. You also have a monitor trim pot on the way into the short fader, so you can turn up the amount of effect or down that's coming into the desk. So if the faders are way down at the bottom and you're not getting a lot of resolution, you could turn down the input trim and that gives you more throw on the fader. Right now I have them all set at 12 noon just as a starting point. This is my first time actually using it like this, so you're seeing this for the first time. So I'm still dialing it in, but that's how you set up effects on the board, and that's how I'm kind of doing it. So again, I'll go ahead and I'll play back this track and I'll just mute all the effects. I'll turn them on and off so you can kind of hear the difference. And again, it's very, very subtle. If you're listening to this on headphones or in your studio on a good set of monitors, you'll hear it, but it's very subtle. So here we go. We'll start with an in and we'll take it out. Just keep your eye on the screen and you'll see the muting of the effects. Here we go.
Someone tell the mothers to tell the little ones that we're all living in a sideways place. Oh, please, please resist the violence lurking in your skin. Let it cut until it bleeds out grace. 'Cause everyone feels alone. I'm reaching out for someone. I'm reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm reaching out for someone. I'm reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
So there you go. So that's how I'm blending in my effects on the board using the short faders and the monitor D-sub inputs on the console. I hope you found this video helpful and I hope you had a good time taking a look at this and you're following me along on my journey as I'm mixing for the first time. Really, this is the first full song we're doing together, so we're learning together. And I appreciate all your support, and let me know in the comments below if you use some kind of an analog mixer, even if it's not a full inline console, but even a smaller mixer. How do you deal with your reverbs and delays into your effects? Do you route them out to your mixer? How do you do it? I'd be curious to know. What kind of plugins do you use for reverbs and delays? Right now, I'm pretty much sticking with Universal Audio and the CLA Epic by Waves, although I have many others on my other workstation. I'm trying to limit my options here. And also too, do you use hardware reverb or delay units? And if you do, which ones do you use? I got a couple that are going to be coming in soon, and I'm going to do a video comparing how does the hardware stack up using the aux sends as opposed to using the plugins and blending them in. I'm really not sure what the difference is. Is one going to sound better or worse or just different? I'm really curious to kind of find out, and I hope you take the journey with me. So until the next video, please like, share, and subscribe. I've been Dave with MixingMusicAnalog.com and Mixing Music Analog. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.